I must rise above the flames.
Welcome back, Flick Knaves. I'm Lupinefiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we are playing Cindra, Dracai of Retribution. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Empire. What we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, giving my thought process for the lines I would take, and comparing those to the lines I did take at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you like what you see and would like to try this deck for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see every new episode of Daily FaB Gameplay in your YouTube feed. I also have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description. Patrons at the Arc Lightning tier or higher will get access to all of my matchup guides for all of my deck lists forever, including this one. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the gameplay. We won the die roll here and chose to go second. That's going to let us use our opening hand to block out any attacks that Kayo throws our way. Our game plan here is just full aggro with a few considerations. The first is Scowling Fleshbag. That intimidates a card from our hand when used on defense, so we are never going to attempt to never put ourselves into a position where losing any random card from our hand just completely ruins a turn. The other thing that I want to avoid is putting cards into Arsenal, and that is because Kayo plays 3 copies of Command and Conquer and 3 copies of Send Packing, and I don't want to block. I can, but if I'm using 2-3 blocks from hand, I'm probably losing value overall than if I had just sent some vanilla damage on the past turn. So, respect Fleshbag, don't Arsenal when possible, and if you win the die roll, choose to go second. Our opening hand here is fine. If Kayo just passes the turn, then we have pretty good lines, but instead Kayo is going to attack with Wild Ride for 6 with Go again. With 2 cards in Kayo's hand, I would sort of like to respect incoming damage, so I could block this with both Display Loyalties and Blaze Headlong, leaving myself with Art of the Dragon Blood. As you know from last week's video against Acilio, Art of the Dragon Blood is pretty shit on its own, so I would prefer to use it to block. I'm actually going to allow myself to leak some damage here and block with Display Loyalty and Art of the Dragon Blood. This is sort of hedging my bets against additional damage if Kayo decides to keep pushing. Maybe he drew into a blue and run Roughshod and would send 8 damage with Claw and Run, or maybe he just sends another 2 for 6 or Swing Big or something. I don't want to block out all of the damage because I want cards to have for future blocking, but I also want to have playable cards in hand. And Kayo does just pass the turn, so even though we leak 1 there, we do kind of get rewarded. We also get a little punished. We draw into the Brand with Cinderclaw, which would have let us play the Art of Dragon Blood, but of course we couldn't have known that, and I am happy to still have Blaze Headlong and Display Loyalty. This turn more or less plays itself, but it is going to introduce sort of the theme of this game, which is sequencing mistakes. We do want to play all 4 of these cards. We could pitch Brand with Cinderclaw to attack with both daggers, but that only gets us to 5 chain links this turn, and we end up going down a dagger because we won't get to refresh both of them, and we aren't maximizing damage by attacking with a kunai, then breaking the chain, then attacking with another kunai and flicking it later on because we need to open our turn with Oath of Loyalty. So the sequencing here is pretty easy. I'm going to make a mistake of it, but the sequencing should be Oath of Loyalty, Display Loyalty, Blaze Headlong, Brand with Cinderclaw, and whichever of those gets blocked, unless it's Oath, that's when we flick. So what I'm expecting to happen would be Oath of Loyalty, Display Loyalty. Kayo puts a 3-block from hand in front of it. We flick knives. Then we attack with Blaze Headlong, which either gets 2 pieces of armor or a piece of armor and another card, or maybe even 2 cards if Kayo's hand just sucks. And then we attack with Brand with Cinderclaw and buy back the kunai that we flipped. So you're going to see me play Oath of Loyalty Brand with Cinderclaw, and the reason that we don't want to attack with Brand second, why we want to attack with it last, is that Kayo gets to just put armor in front of it. That is one of Kayo's real strengths in the aggro mirror, is that he has so much goddamn armor. So we attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, Kayo just puts Scab Skins in front of it. It's an easy 0-card block. Yes, it uses the armor, but Kayo, like us, want this game to end very quickly. So if Kayo gets to just use armor here, then he's way ahead of us, because we have to spend cards and Kayo gets to keep a 5-card hand. So now we're going to attack with the Brand with Cinderclaw, the Blaze Headlong, and we'll see how Kayo wants to block this. Giving us a Command and Conquer and a Smash Instinct might tell us that we could Arsenal Display Loyalty and expect to be able to keep a 5-card hand on our next turn, but I don't think that's what's happening. We could read the situation like that, but what I suspect is that Kayo either has a second piece of Arsenal Disruption, be it another Command and Conquer or Send Packing, or something that Kayo wants to do more than attack with Command and Conquer, which could be Swing Big, Erase Face, something else disruptive. So kind of any of the options here, what I like the least is arsenaling Display Loyalty. So I'm just going to play it. But you can see that this turn would have been much better, and we maybe get another card from Kayo, or 2 pieces of armor on the Blaze Headlong, in order to stop the draw, and instead the Brand was just an easy armor block for Kayo, so big misplay there. Kayo does have the Erase Face. It's coming for 7. We can't really block it easily, even if it's 6. So we are just looking to maximize value this turn, and we have a few ways to do it. The important thing about Erase Face is that while it takes away all of our class and talents, it doesn't prevent us from getting them. So say we broke our fealty at the start of our next turn, we play Brand with Cinderclaw. Brand with Cinderclaw becomes Draconic because of the fealty. Brand with Cinderclaw's text would then apply to Burning Blade Dance, which we could play as a follow-up to Brand with Cinderclaw, because it would see the fealty made Brand Draconic, and then Brand made the Burning Blade Dance Draconic. So we do spend a fealty to put that turn together, but we get to play out this 4-card hand, and Drop of Dragon Blood is discounted to 0 because it sees 2 Draconic Chainlinks. What we don't get out of that turn cycle is getting to buy back a kunai. We generate a resource from Drop of Dragon Blood, we can attack with a kunai, we can play Blaze Headlong, we can flick the kunai, but Cindra would only see 2 Draconic Chainlinks and we wouldn't get our dagger back for free. So, interesting value decision here. We could take 7, go to 28, use our fealty, attack for 3, 3, 4, with the Flick Knives activation to keep our Mask of Momentum alive. We have Drop of Dragon Blood that can make a resource to attack with a kunai and draw us a new card. But that all seems pretty risky, and it does put us into flesh bag territory, where it's kind of easy for Kayo to block. We use a fealty to make that turn happen. I value my fealties very highly because of Art of Dragon Fire, Art of Dragon Blood, and we're just taking 7 damage. So what I actually like more is blocking this with Burning Blade Dance. On our turn, we attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, then Blaze Headlong, because fealty sees us play a Draconic card, that being Blaze Headlong, which is made Draconic by Brand with Cinderclaw. We don't lose the fealty. And then we Arsenal Drop of Dragon Blood, which is risky. I've talked about how I specifically don't want to Arsenal in this matchup, but I think it's better than the alternative, which is to take 7 here and burn our fealty to try and put a turn together, where instead we can just send a 2-card 7 and Arsenal drop. We've seen a Command and Conquer used by Kayo on defense. He pitched a Send Packing on turn 0 to attack with Wild Ride. So of the 54 cards that he has remaining, only 4 of them actually impact Drop of Dragonblood in Arsenal, and maybe Kayo just doesn't have them. I'm willing to take the risk as opposed to taking the extra damage, burning my fealty, or what I think is even worse, pitching drop here to attack with Kunai, which is just an easy armor block using the second half of Scabskin Leathers, and then we are down a Kunai. Now, there is something to be said for Flick Knivesing on that last turn, just to get the value. We go down a dagger, that's fine. Kayo has no way to banish the dagger from our graveyard, so the only card that we could draw that we are concerned about losing value from is Wrath of Retribution. Could we play out this turn with just a single dagger? And the answer is yes. Obviously we can't know that ahead of time, but with this hand we can play Ravenous Rabble, play Blaze Headlong, play Hot on Their Heels. Drop of Dragonblood is online, so we get to play that. We can use our floating resource to pay for Art of Dragonfire, using the fealty to make a Draconic, and then buy back both of our daggers. So we could have gone down to 1 dagger and been fine, and I think we were supposed to do that, just flick for the 1 point of value. Here, Kayo has a pretty crummy turn, just playing out Assault and Battery for 5. Checking Kayo's discard, he drew into 4 blues, so this is great for us. We can just take this damage. Our turn is going to be Ravenous Rabble, Blaze Headlong, Hot on Their Heels. Depending on where the block comes down, we can think about Flick Knivesing, but after we play Hot on Their Heels, we get to play Drop of Dragonblood, which draws us a card, gives us a resource that can potentially pay for Art of Dragonfire. We flip up a Ronin Renegade. So let's think about what this turn cycle looks like. Play the Blaze Headlong, play the Hot on Their Heels. We've got a block on the Blaze Headlong. Do we want to Flick Knives here? And I believe the answer is no. I believe what we want to do instead is just pass through Reactions and Resolution, play Hot on Their Heels. If Kayo blocks it, then we use Flick Knives. If Kayo does not block it, we play Drop of Dragonblood. We're playing drop either way, but if he doesn't block it, then we just get our hit trigger from Hot on Their Heels, mark Kayo. Then we can play Ronin Renegade. If the Ronin Renegade gets blocked, then we Flick Knives. That makes us another fealty, and we play Drop of Art of Dragonfire. This does potentially put us in a position where we are burning a resource. If we're saving the floating resource from Dragonblood to play Dragonfire and then we get fleshbagged, we burn a resource, that's fine. We get the fleshbag out of the way, we are not taking an intellect penalty because we get our Dragonfire back, we arsenal it, and then draw 4 cards, so it's just all upside. I don't want to Flick Knives here. Additionally, I really want Hot on Their Heels to hit because I want more fealty. So if I Flick Knives here, that is incentivizing Kayo to block the Hot on Their Heels. If I don't flick here and Mask of Momentum gets reset, Kayo is incentivized to save blocks for later in the turn. At this point, I did want to use Blood Splattered Vest because I want to leave the door open for Kunai, Hot on Their Heels, Ronin Renegade. Kunai, Ronin Renegade, Art of Dragonfire. We know that we're going to have an extra resource because of Dragonfire, because of Dragonblood, and we want to be able to threaten Mask of Momentum again if the Hot on Their Heels gets blocked out. And at this point, we're really relying on using Dragonblood to make a resource which we will use to attack with Kunai. Then we're relying on the Kunai hitting to make a resource from Vest, and we're relying on Kayo to not use Fleshbag on the Ronin Renegade, where we are very obviously telegraphing that we have a finisher. So if Kayo uses Fleshbag here, it's just insane value for him. There were a lot of reasons to not flick on that Blaze Headlong, and then there were extra reasons to use our Blood Splattered Vest when we could, when we flicked and it looked more natural. Just a very shaky line for me that we are not getting super punished by, but it definitely could have been better. If that Hot on Their Heels hit, then we could have had another fealty here, and I would have felt fantastic about ending my turn with a fealty. It's all fine. We're up 10 life. We're ending our turn with a kunai. Kayo's only got 2 cards, but this could have been a lot better. The erase phase here is about as bad as it could possibly be. If this was Command and Conquer, then I'm much happier in my situation. As it is, we're still keeping in mind that we don't want to end our turn with an arsenal. We're also keeping in mind that erase phase is going to make it so that we cannot buy back a dagger. We can't do something like Ronin Renegade, Lava Vein Loyalty, Blood Runs Deep, flick our dagger, buy both of them back. Arsenal Wrath, we can't do something like play Ronin, Arsenal Wrath. I hate arsenaling Wrath when I only have 1 dagger because I want to get maximum value out of Wrath, which means that it's probably sitting in Arsenal for at least 2 turns, which is just absolutely atrocious against a hero with so much Arsenal hate. So we're just going to maximize value here, which means blocking Erase Phase for 6, using Wrath of Retribution and Blood Runs Deep. On our turn, we play Ronin Renegade, then play Lava Vein Loyalty. Not exciting by any means. This is a 4-card 12, but we are continuing to put ourselves into a position where we don't get got by Send Packing or Command and Conquer. We are playing more of a mid-range game where we are preserving life in order to put ourselves into a position later in the game where we can just take a bunch of damage to throw off some big turn of our own. But yeah, the erase phase is definitely annoying here. The fact that our Kayo has drawn 2 erase phases by turn 5 is pretty unfortunate for us. Definitely statistically unlikely, and really showing the power of that card in this matchup. Taking away Draconic from Cindra, yeah, there are plenty of hands where she can just block out for 6, 8, whatever, but we're losing value because we aren't able to threaten Mask of Momentum. Kayo just taking the 3 here makes sense. Go down to 17. Throw something like a Swing Big, Wild Ride, Bare Fangs, whatever. Which we know Kayo had because of the Clash. Kayo discarding a Send Packing. What we don't know is, was that Send Packing in his hand or on top of his deck? If we had arsenaled that Lava Vein Loyalty or attacked with Lava Vein Loyalty and arsenaled the Ronin Renegade, this is potentially Send Packing coming in for 6, and we have to block it, or else we lose our arsenal. So you see how, if we assume that Kayo had the Send Packing and was just leaving the door open to have arsenal disruption, that we are better off just sending damage and not getting caught with that arsenal. This hand, very good on offense. I do not want to block here. I'm fine to just take 7 and try to fix the sequencing mistake that I made earlier, where we do Oath of Loyalty, Burning Blade Dance, Rising Resentment, Brand of Cinderclaw, Flick a Dagger, buy our kunai back, etc. I value Burning Blade Dance more on offense than I do on defense because Kayo still has Savage Sash. If we throw a turn like Oath of Loyalty, Brand with Cinderclaw, Rising Resentment, and that is how we're triggering Mask, Kayo gets to put Sash in front of Brand, we flick knives, Kayo gets to put a 3 block from hand in front of Rising Resentment. I want to make Kayo either use 2 pieces of armor to stop my Burning Blade Dance or my Rising Resentment, or I want him to have to give me 2 cards from hand in order to block my 3 blocks, and then get 6 damage in with Oath and Brand. I make a terrible decision by blocking with my 3 block there, trying to play for mid-range, which is still fine. We're at 25 to KO 17, it's all good, but that means that we're going to attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, and KO gets to just block it with Sash, which is really bad for us. We've really teed up these easy blocks for KO, and he can give us 1 card here to block this Rising Resentment and keep a 4-card hand, which, with plenty of Wild Rides, Blood Rush Bellow still in the deck, that's just fine for KO. He's good with that. So we lose our Clash, and KO makes a Might. We are going to get to buy back both of our daggers at least. And we'll see what KO's turn looks like. So we've got a Blood Rush Bellow, which is being paid for with a blue from hand and discarding this Swing Big. If we had kept that Burning Blade Dance in hand and send Oath of Loyalty, Burning Blade Dance, Rising Resentment, Kayo either needs to also block with that Apex Bonebreaker to cover up 3 with Savage Sash, or Kayo blocks with either the Wrecker Romp or the Bloodrush Bellow, and then he doesn't get to do this. He probably just swing bigs for 8, which is good, but we're going to take way more damage from this Blood Rush than we would have from swing big for, it would have been 10 because of the 2 mites. We'll see at the end of this turn how much damage we take, but I guarantee it's going to be more than 10. What does our hand do? It does pretty good damage, so we get to play Fire Tenant into Brand with Cinderclaw into Art of Dragon Blood. That is 3/3/4. Kayo does not have an easy block with just armor. If we lead with Fire Tenant, we are also insulated from Scowling Fleshbag. The worst thing for Kayo to hit would be the Brand with Cinderclaw, because then we don't benefit from the Fire Tenant, but we are still getting to send 3/4/4, which threatens a Mask of Momentum trigger and really just gives us something to arsenal at the end of our turn. We get a choice between whatever's on top of our deck and Brand with Cinderclaw. If Kayo does not banish the Brand with Cinderclaw, then we always get to go 3/3/4, which is just making blocks very difficult for Kayo. So I'm really incentivized to not block here, which is ironic because I should have been not blocking the turn prior and just making this more difficult for Kayo. Like I said, the theme of this game is sequencing mistakes. We really can't afford to block here because of that Fleshbag. We're getting towards the end of the game. Kayo has been very disciplined, just holding on to this Fleshbag. But if we block with our Art of Dragon Blood and just cover 3, intending to send Fire Tenant, Brand, Ravenous Rabble, and any of those get blocked by the Fleshbag, well, if either of the first 2 get blocked, then we don't get to threaten Mask of Momentum. And so this is where we kind of do need to keep cards because we want to be able to pressure Kayo. Remember how I said that we'll compare how much damage we take after this Blood Rush to the 10 that we would have taken from Swing Big? The fact that we could not pressure Kayo off of multiple cards in hand means that we took 5 more damage than we otherwise could have. So while that Burning Blade Dance blocked 3, we actually took 2 more damage than that. Leading with the Ravenous Rabble here is terrible. I don't know why I'm doing this. Our follow-up can be Fire Tenant, which potentially gets blocked. But then Brand with Cinderclaw, which is threatening our Mask of Momentum trigger, is only a 3-power attack. So it's just very odd to me that I chose 4/3/3/4 instead of 3/3/4/4, which is just much better at threatening Mask of Momentum, because it means that Kayo needs to block for 3 on Chainlink 2 and then 4 on Chainlink 3. He has the armor to do it. I'm not expecting that we would be able to get in with an Art of Dragonfire because of the Bonebreaker, but we are still just making life a little harder for him, and opening with 4 damage just does not threaten Mask of Momentum in a way that I find very satisfying. But we'll still play out the rest of our turn. We are threatening lethal, technically. Kayo has the armor and cards in hand to block it, but it is worth noting that this does put Kayo into a position where he has to respect our damage, at least somewhat. We've seen 3 Send Packings and 1 Command and Conquer at this point. We could have arsenaled this Dragon Blood, and just hoped to be okay. And in hindsight, that would have been great, because it meant that Kayo would not have gotten to use that Bonebreaker there. We're dealing with Erase Face for 8. We had the Brand with Cinderclaw that would have turned on Art of Dragon Blood. Again, how could we possibly know? And unfortunately, we're in a position where this hand just does not convert well without being Draconic. We cannot turn on Display Loyalty. We cannot turn on Demonstrate Devotion, and these 2 cards each only block for 2. So what I believe we want to do here, what maximizes our value, is to block with Lava Vein Loyalty, We attack with Brand with Cinder Claw, we flick knives, generate a resource, and then play Demonstrate Devotion. So we want to block with Lava Vein Loyalty and Display Loyalty and go down to 7. Then threaten 8 on our turn. Maybe that gets the Flesh Bag away from Kayo, but if Kayo does give us Flesh Bag here, and we can't play Demonstrate Devotion, not only are we not taking an intellect penalty, but we are also now not going to flick our last kunai, and we will keep a dagger going into our next turn. So I think these blocks are fine. They're not ideal. We have too many 2 blocks in hand to adequately deal with this erase face, but we are okay. We're putting ourselves into a position here where we're threatening lethal if Kayo doesn't block. If Kayo does block, we are still either getting the Flesh Bag and setting up a 5-card hand, or we are getting a card from Kayo's hand. He gives us the Flesh Bag. We're not going to flick knives. We are just going to pass the turn, Arsenal, Demonstrate Devotion. We draw into a pretty decent hand for blocking. Kayo is going to cash in the Savage Sash, using a blue to pay for this Wild Ride. Now we have to answer the age-old question, do we respect Reckless Swing? We could. I don't think we need to overly respect it, but I would like to put Mask of Momentum in front of the Wild Ride here, take 4 damage and go down to 3 so that we're playing around Reckless Swing. Kayo is low enough on life that we are never going to trigger Mask of Momentum again, because the damage that we would deal by hitting 3 times in a row will likely just kill Kayo. So the Mask here, this late in the game, is only worth 2 points of life, and I would have loved to cash it in here just to stay out of Reckless Swing territory, and if Kayo's follow-up is another 6 damage, then, you know, we're good. We can cover that with Hot on their heels, have a 3-card hand, be able to flick knives for a resource. Swing big would have made this more difficult, so if we're at 3 here and we have no Mask of Momentum, we either block with 2 Hot on their heels and go down to 1, keep a 3-card hand that threatens 3, 6, 7, 12 damage, or we are covering this with Hot on their heels and Ronin Renegade. Then we attack with Fire Tenant, flick dagger, flick knives, make a resource, attack with Demonstrate Devotion. That's a total of 9 damage overall. We get 2 cards away from Kayo, or we could keep Ronin Renegade, which threatens 7 damage overall, but does let us use a resource generated from Blood Spattered Vest in order to buy back both kunai. That's probably our best line. We are sort of now, our line is very easy because we are already in Reckless Swing range. We don't need to respect it, and if we take damage here, we die. So we just block for 8, make a Quicken, which doesn't matter, and we hope that Kayo just doesn't have the Reckless Swing. We're going to Fire Tenant, Ronin Renegade, flick knives, Blood Splattered Vest, make a resource for Demonstrate Devotion. I think 3-4-4 is better than 3-3-5. So we will flick knives here, deal our point of damage, make a resource. I just want to know, the reason I'm doing this now, for one thing, it doesn't matter because we don't have Mask of Momentum anymore. We don't need to keep that chain going. But for another thing, if Kayo is for whatever reason playing Shelter from the Storm or Calming Breeze, I want to know as early as possible that my dagger is not going to connect and I won't get my resource from Blood Spattered Vest, because what I would choose to do instead, say the Calming Breeze happens, I would pitch Ronin Renegade to play Demonstrate Devotion and get in for 5 rather than 4, and also ditch my arsenal. We get blocked by Blood Rush Bellow. That doesn't necessarily mean that Kayo has Reckless Swing, but there's a very good chance, and in fact he does have it, so that is just going to kill us. Majorly outvalued by Kayo that game, turn to turn. But there were a couple things that really lost it for us. One was absolutely in our control, which was the sequencing mistakes that we made multiple times over the course of the game, giving Kayo easy armor blocks on our yellow Brand with Cinder Claws, and also choosing to block for 3 instead of keeping that Burning Blade Dance to get more cards out of Kayo's hand, or at least make him use his Bonebreaker for pure block value and not the Might, which might have given us a little more room to play with. But outside of that, the aspect of this game that we couldn't control was just Kayo finding 3 erase faces. If any of those erase phases are Command and Conquer, then we probably win this game because we would have gotten to deal more damage on that particular turn and threaten a Mask of Momentum trigger where we didn't get to. So definitely some bad variance with Kayo seeing more of the erase phases than the Command and Conquers, but absolutely in our control to make Kayo block more and be more defensive, thereby being less aggressive, if we had just sequenced better. And that really is the name of the game with Cindra, is proper sequencing for your Mask of Momentum. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something about sequencing or about the Kayo matchup. If so, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you have not already done so, consider a YouTube subscription. It's free. It helps me out a lot. I have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description below. I will be back later this week with more Cindra gameplay. So until the next time I see you on Daily FaB Gameplay, take care.